Welcome to Training for Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, or FERPA, for academic departments and student workers. FERPA is a delicate balancing act between two principles: the public's right to know versus an individual right to privacy, and the second being providing excellent customer service versus protecting sensitive access to that information. The FERPA language will distinguish between mays and musts. There are items in the legislation that we must do to ensure compliance with the law. However, there are other things that we may do but are not required to do so. For example, we may release student records to a parent of a student who was claimed as a tax dependent, but we are not required to do so. UNC will look at these situations on a case-by-case basis. Generally, students must have a release on file before we release information to parents. Another is school officials must not disclose personally identifiable information about students, nor permit inspection of their records without written permission, unless such action is covered by certain exemptions permitted by the law. So what is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act of 1974? It's a federal law designed to protect the privacy of education records, establish the rights of students to inspect and review their education records, and provide guidelines for the correction of inaccurate or misleading data through either informal or formal hearings. FERPA applies to educational agencies or institutions that receive federal funding under any program administered by the U.S. Department of Education. Typically, this is Title IV. It is enforced by the Family Compliance Office at the U.S. Department of Education. Please remember that non-compliance of FERPA can lead to the loss of federal funding for the university. So who is covered by FERPA? An eligible student is a student who is in attendance at a post-secondary institution regardless of their age. In attendance is the first day of the first term in which the student is registered. FERPA will continue even if the student leaves the institution. However, if the student is deceased, FERPA does cease. However, at UNC, we transfer the rights to the next of kin with proper legal documentation. Please remember that applicants who are denied admission or applicants that are yet to be admitted are not covered by FERPA. This allows admissions and financial aid personnel to have a conversation with students and their parents prior to being admitted. So what are the rights afforded under FERPA? They have the right to inspect and review their education records. They have the right to seek to amend any inaccurate or incomplete records. They have the right to control disclosure over personally identifiable information from their educational record. And finally, they have the right to file a complaint with the U.S. Department of Education. Please understand that an eligible student must be permitted to inspect and request amendment of their own educational records. Please refer all requests to the Office of the Registrar. So what is an education record? An educational record is any record that is maintained by the institution that is directly related to the student and from which a student can be identified. Examples of educational records at UNC would be academic records such as grades, transcripts, etc., financial aid records, alumni records, disciplinary records, and employment records if their employment is a result of their student status. This means work-study students. An education record does not include sole possession records, records that are in the sole possession of the maker and are not accessible or revealed to any other individual. Law enforcement records, records created and maintained by UNC's police department. Employment records, records relating to individuals who are employed at the institution, provided that that employment is not due to their student status. This is non-work study students. And finally, medical and treatment records, records created and maintained by the Student Health Center, Counseling Center, or Disability Support Center. Personally identifiable information, or PII data, is any information that can be used to steal identities, disrupt university operations, and damage UNC's reputation. This information includes, but is not limited to, a student's social security number, their Bear ID number, non-directory information such as race, ethnicity, gender, credit card information, health information, and any other information that alone or in combination is linkable to a specific student. Please be aware that PII data should never be released alone or in combination with other data that would allow someone to have access to PII data for a specific student. For example, you should never include both the student's name and a complete Bear ID number in an email. Please use the student's name and the last 4 digits of their Bear ID. If you need to email or share sensitive files, you must either use Windows Rights Management encryption or OneDrive to share files. Information on both processes are available at the technical support website. And please remember to never email social security numbers, either partial or whole. Institutions may disclose information in education records in the following situations: if it is directory in nature, if it is directly to a student, if it is to a third party with the student's consent, if it is to the parents of a student. Please refer those requests to the registrar's office so that we can determine whether there is a consent to release on file. If it is to school officials with legitimate educational interest. We talked about directory information. Now, what is that information? Directory information is personally identifiable information contained in an education record of a student that would not generally be considered harmful or an invasion of privacy. Directory information may be disclosed to anyone by any means on any student without the student's permission, except for students that have requested a directory hold be placed on their account. Please note, you may not confirm directory information that is linked to non-directory information. If someone calls to verify a student's dates of enrollment and only provides you with a social security number, you cannot disclose that information because by doing so, you have also confirmed the student's social security number. Directory information is determined by UNC includes student name, address, phone, email address, date of birth, dates of attendance, full and part-time enrollment, number of credits, student classification, major field of study, degrees pursued or being pursued, degrees conferred and dates, honors, awards, and publications, most recently attended educational institution, participation in officially recognized sports and activities, and physical factors of athletes. Directory information may never include race, gender, social security number, full or partial, grades, student schedules, GPA, country of citizenship. Non-directory information may be released directly to the student in person with valid identification, via a student's Bear mail, over the phone with verification and authentication. Verification could be full name, date of birth, student ID number. Please never ask for social security number. Authentication could be first and last term, high school attended, number of credits, professor's name, GPA, transfer institution attended, courses taken in a previous term, degree awarded, and date. Non-directory information may be released to a third party with student consent. Consent must be either in the form of an email from their Bear mail or through the consent to release form or a written request. If the request or consent form is not signed in front of an employee, the form must be notarized. Student must be specific about what information is to be released and to whom. If you have consent for someone else to pick up documents, the person picking up must also have photo identification. Please note that institutions are required to keep a record of requests and disclosures. These requests are part of a student's educational record and must be retained by the institution. Non-directory information may be released to parents in certain circumstances. At the post-secondary level, parents have no legitimate rights under Ferpa to inspect their child's educational records. At UNC, we recommend that students get educational information directly from their student. A student can also provide a signed consent giving parents and other third parties access to their education records, which would allow UNC personnel to release information directly to parents. Non-directory information may be released to a school official with legitimate educational interest. A school official could be someone employed by the institution in an administrative, supervisory, academic, research, or support staff position, serving on the board of trustees, a company under contract with the institution to perform a specific task, i.e., clearinghouse, an auditor, SCC, banner, etc. Although an individual may be a school official, they do not have the right to access any student record or all student records. They must have legitimate educational interest. School officials have legitimate educational records if they need to review an educational record in order to perform a task specified by their position, description, or contract, perform a task related to a student's education, perform a task related to the discipline of a student. Please remember that curiosity does not constitute a legitimate educational interest. Non-directory information may be released without the student's consent in the following situations: to state, federal, local authorities involving an audit or compliance with education programs, in conjunction with financial aid including VA benefits, to comply with a judicial order or subpoena, in a health and safety emergency, to accrediting organizations, and to organizations conducting studies on behalf of the educational institution. Student request of non-disclosure of directory information. Students can request that UNC not release their directory information. However, this does not provide anonymity in the classroom setting. Students considering this option are counseled by the Office of the Registrar because of the severity and seriousness of this request. Students who have selected this option will have a confidential indicator on their record. If this is in place, it will remain on the student's record until the student completes the necessary steps to remove it. Please understand that we cannot release information to anyone except the student in person with a valid ID. If UNC receives an inquiry regarding the student, UNC must respond that they have no information on that individual. So let's test your knowledge. A student comes in and wants you to print a copy of their unofficial transcript before their advising appointment. Should you do this? Hopefully your answer was no. Please refer the student to URSA to print a copy of their unofficial transcript. A parent calls and wants to talk about her child's attendance and grades. Can you give her any information? Again, the answer is no. Please refer the parent to the Office of the Registrar. However, before you hang up, the parent indicates that her child has signed a form allowing release of non-directory information to her. Can you now give her any information? Please contact the Office of the Registrar to confirm the student consent to release form is on file prior to releasing any information. A student wants to pick up her roommate's assignment. Can she do this? Hopefully you answered no, not without written consent from the roommate. The easiest way to achieve this is to have the student send you a permission via her Bear Mail account. UNC treats the student's Bear Mail account as a signature in this situation. An instructor wants to leave students' graded test on a table in the front office and have the students pick them up. Can the instructor do this? The correct answer would be no. This would allow students to see the name and grade of other students in the class. If you are granted access to URSA and Banner, it must mean you have the right to look at any student's record. Is this true? The correct answer is no. FERPA stipulates that you must have legitimate educational interest in order to access or view a student's record. This means that you can only access information on those students that is required to fulfill any professional responsibility that you have to the student and UNC. Remember, curiosity is not a legitimate educational interest. While you are working on the computer, a student comes in and can view student information on your computer. Is this a violation of FERPA? You should have answered yes. Student information and student records are protected regardless of the format, electronic or written. You must adjust your screen so that other student information is not viewable. Your coworker does not have access to certain Banner screens. She asks if she can log in as you. Should you allow her? The answer is no. You should never allow any other person to access your account. You are responsible for any action that is taken with your user ID, and it is a violation of university policy to let someone else access your account. You need to discard some student records. Can you put them in the trash bin? The correct answer is no. Any documents containing student information must be shredded and placed in locked confidential shredded bins provided by facilities. Please do not place any papers in the small blue recycle bin that contains any student information. A student calls and asks what grade she received in a course. Can you give her that information over the phone? The answer here is maybe. It is preferred that you refer the student to URSA or their Canvas to view their grades or an official transcript. If you do provide the information over the phone, you must first verify you are talking to the correct person and then authenticate that person on the phone is the student that you are speaking with. When looking at student records, you will receive a warning that the information is confidential. Can you still release the information on the student? No. When a student requests to be confidential, you cannot even acknowledge that they are a student here. If you receive a phone call from a student or another person, your response should be, "I am unable to locate a student record," and then refer them to the office of the registrar. In Banner, when you initially go into a student's screen, you can see a banner popping up indicating that their information is confidential. Once you move between records in Banner, the confidentiality indicator will be near the Bear ID. In Banner Self-Service, through URSA, when you pull up the student record, there is a small warning box that is easily missed. Please watch carefully. That concludes the training for the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. Please remember this one important saying: when in doubt, don't give out. If you have questions, please contact the Office of the Registrar at the Campus Commons. Our phone number is 970-351-4862, or by email, you can reach us at registrar@unco.edu. For additional resources, you can visit the website at www.unco.com/registrar, or you can visit the Student Privacy Policy Office at the U.S. Department of Education. Thank you, and have a good day.